Hey folks, this is Jen from MCP Tabletop. With me today is
Eric. Good to see you guys again.
We know we've been talking about finishing out the Defenders overview, and we want to bring you the rest of the boxes that recently were released. So today we'll be covering Namor the Submariner, and also in the next video we'll be covering Black Panther, Chosen of Bast, and also giving a general overview of the Defenders leadership and affiliation under Daredevil, and a little bit of Doctor Strange as well. We think they've been really revitalized in this most recent box releases, and we'd like to jump in. So let's start off with Namor the Submariner.
Cool. So I'll start us off. So we've got Namor the Submariner, Namor Mackenzie. I wasn't aware that's his last name, but it is. He is a pretty healthy model. He's got 7 health. He's got 4 physical defense, 4 energy defense, 3 mystic. But he's incredibly mobile too. He's got a long move, and he's on a medium base.
Wow, okay, yeah. So that means that he is one of now the 3 echelons of fastest movers in this game. So there's Amazing Spider-Man, Angela, and now Namor. The only 3 characters that are able to, in one movement, move up once from the midline, grab an objective, and then they can retreat with no assistance at all.
Wow, that's huge. So we just saw a big card rotation, right?
Yeah.
Eyes on the prize disappeared.
Yeah, Eyes on the prize disappeared. That was usually the way that, some slightly slower models were able to, if they have enough power, were able to play the card, grab an objective, and then retreat safely. So now, really only 3 models are able to do this without any sort of card assistance now. And you're looking at one of them that we just got released.
That's awesome. So we'll just talk about the first attack here. So we already talked about how mobile he is and how good he is on the turn 1, right? Getting that extract. Let's talk about his Trident attack. So he's got, it's range 2, it's physical attack, 6 dice, which is already pretty healthy, right?
Yeah.
And then he has a trigger on it. So it's a builder, so he's going to gain all the power that he deals. And before damage is dealt, he gets to advance towards the target small.
Oh, this is interesting. So yeah, so given the long move, and while this is only a range 2 attack, the fact that he gets to move afterwards is pretty interesting. You can play this in a couple of different ways. So if you are base to base, or not even just close enough to them, after you attack, in Marvel, you are allowed to move through enemy models.
Right.
So if you move towards them, technically you can actually move right past their models and like to the other side, right?
Yeah. So I think it's incredibly useful on, like, for example, I'm thinking of spider portals, because we just played in a league with spider portals. And so Namor can come from the center line. He can turn 1, let's say, move and attack the model who's on the back 1 of that spider portal, and then be able to get onto the point and activate it. Because normally he wouldn't be.
Yeah, well, actually, I think one movement he does get there, right?
He does get there?
He does get there, yeah. Remember, like this.
Oh, that's right, because he can interact with
these are midlines, yeah.
Right.
So like he can do that regardless, but it does give him like a little bit more, I guess, versatility. So depending on where they place that model, right? So if you interact with a spider portal, and they have to now be very careful like where we place them, because you can just as easily attack them still within range 2 and get back on the point.
That's true.
Which would be very interesting. The important thing is also that this is before damage is dealt. So even if you were going to KO this model, he still gets that movement. Which is
that's really good. Yeah. And then just a little correction then. So maybe not turn 1, but maybe turn 2, turn 3. He might be able to do an attack, advance small, and then get to a back portal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It does give him the ability to shuffle around a little bit depending on the angle of his attacks. So you can really think tactically like where this guy's going to be moving. Like he's going to be moving around the board quite a bit as long as there's enemies nearby that he can approach.
Right. And then that's sort of his downside, which we'll maybe get to a little bit better later.
Yeah, so we'll notice that like the builder here is range 2, but then we also will take a look at his spender, incredible spender, but also range 2. But let's talk about the spender now.
Let's talk about the spender.
So Armies of the Deep is a range 2 attack just as the same as the builder, but it's 7 dice and it costs 3 power. Now, what's going to happen is that you actually have to choose what mode this attack is going to be in when you declare the attack.
Okay. So
this is interesting. This is one of the few spenders that has like different bullet points of like what mode you want and what effect you want to have. So you have Swarm of Crabs, which is before damage is dealt, target character will drop all asset tokens it's holding. Should be noted that in Marvel Crisis Protocol, the extract objectives come in two categories typically. There's civilians and there's assets, okay? So, you know, the Skrulls, these senators, like, they're people, you know, the crabs can't grab them, unfortunately.
Right.
They can't make them be dropped. But, you know, cubes, the hammers and the fear grips extract mission, anything else in the asset class will be dropped, and no matter how many they're holding. Right. So you can have cubes or hammered situation where they're stackable, and he'll just pinata that guy and just like make him drop everything.
Right, and that's a really strong effect in MCP.
Incredibly strong, yeah. I mean, Web Warriors already have like a couple characters that are able to do that, and they're always touted as like some of the best spenders that we have. So, you know, while it's not a one-for-one, the fact that even it's close to that is very, very good. The second mode that we have is Octopus's Grab. So before damage is dealt, the other enemy characters within 2 of the target characters suffers 1 damage and are pushed away from the target S.
Yeah.
So while this doesn't displace the original target, let's say, you know, it's a tight, smaller map and there's like, you know, 2 or 3 other enemy characters like clustered around it. You can just like have them vacate that slot altogether.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I just actually had it played against me yesterday, where I had Namor. He was targeting me. It was like an E map, right? And all my units were kind of clustered on that middle in Gamma. And he attacked 1 model in there and then pushed all my guys away. Yeah. And that was like a last activation. So I lost a lot of points there. Yeah. And it's just, I think it's a fantastic ability that it can affect multiple units on the field. And it doesn't have to deal damage, right? You don't have to deal damage with this?
No, it just happens to deal damage, then the push. The push is not predicated on the damage being taken. Yeah. So yeah, it's a fantastic, like you said, a last activation, right? So if you hold Namor until like the last activation, this spender can play work either in dropping the extracts. In this case, they'll be pushing folks away, or we can do Wave of Turtles.
Yeah.
So Wave of Turtles is the third mode that this is in. Love Wave of Turtles as just a name.
Yeah, I know.
After this attack resolved, this character may immediately interact with any number of objective tokens without spending power, and if it does, after all effects are resolved, this character may advance S. So this is probably the most interesting utility one, in my opinion, because you can be in a situation where either there's objectives near you because they're already there, or the attack just does so much damage in the first place to make them drop everything because they're dazed or KO'd.
Yep.
And then you can pick up stuff afterwards. Or there's pay to flip secure objectives which require you to do tests to be able to claim those objectives, right?
And you get a free use of it.
Yeah, and just not having to spend power. So, and his base is like, you know, a medium-sized base, but it does have quite a bit of coverage. Yep. So you can be in a situation where you can have placed him in such a great way where he's in between 2 or more objectives, and he can either interact to the test here and still pick up an objective, and then right afterwards he gets his S movement, omnidirectional.
That's sweet. So you can kind of you could take the objective and get away to safety, maybe.
Yeah, and sometimes like you're not even looking to get a free interact out of this, like because the interact is a May actually. The biggest thing is the fact that you also have a May S. So sometimes you just need to move away, because we're talking about like how the Trident moves you forward, right? This way the Army's Deep spender can actually kind of let you retreat back in a different direction or to a more tactical advantage position for either scoring or to set up for the next turn.
Right. It is important to note, though, that you only get the advance if you interact with the token.
Let's see. After far results? Yes, that's right.
Because it says if it does. So, but that's, like you said, it's very easy to do on like a secure pay to flip.
Yeah.
Right.
My apologies. Like I should be using Wave of Turtles more often. Well, but you're correct, Eric. Yes.
It did come up one time. I had nothing to interact with, and I was like, I can run away, and they're like, nope.
Yep. We're not playing a fast one on you, Eric.
Right. No. So those 3 words really do matter there.
Yes. Yeah. So you might have to interact, but that's okay though, because like there's a lot of situations where you can interact with Wave of Turtles, like you said. There's a lot of objectives you can interact with, or even things like Riot Sparks Extremis. Riot Sparks Extremis, you can just interact and just heal a hit point back, and even if you're not going to take advantage of it, the fact that you interacted with that in the first place does allow you to still take advantage of the S movement as well. So yeah, very versatile spender. It's one of the most fun spenders I've ever seen.
For sure.
As far as like toolbox kits and whatnot. Do you want to move on to Imperious Rex?
I kind of want to keep talking about this spender. Is that okay?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's plenty of stuff to dissect.
Because I feel like this spender is like his bread and butter. Yes. I mean, he's a fantastic model. Everything on him is really great, right? Long movement and everything. But there's just so much in the spender that you don't really think about until you keep playing him, right? So the first question that I have for you is, let's say you're attacking a model that has some damage on it. Okay, we're going to talk about, let's go with a 6 health model, right? Sure. And it has 2 damage on it. And it's carrying a token, okay? Yeah. Now, are you going with Swarm of Crabs, or are you going with Wave of Turtles?
Ooh, okay. Personally, as someone that's slightly more risk-averse, I think I would go with Swarm of Crabs. Okay. But it also may be a question of like whether or not this is going to be my first action or my second action, right?
Right, that's true.
Yeah, so if it comes to the point where like it's like, hey, potentially, 2 points might win me the game, I might take Wave of Turtles then, right? Okay. We're hoping to daze them in 1 attack, the last attack that is, pick up their extract, and then move away maybe to get a secure point, right? Right. So that's the way I'm thinking. It's like you have to sort of evaluate the board state, and again, we love it when a thing asks you to like, is like, hey, before you choose, think about what you need here. What do you need, right? Right. And sometimes like, where we can do the safe thing, which is, all right, this Swarm of Crabs is going to give me 1 point. But, Wave of Turtles might give me 2 points.
Yeah, I mean, but then, like you said, are you risk averse or not, right? I tend to take the risk, and I do get punished for it sometimes. So I would have taken the Wave of Turtles in that circumstance, but again, it depends on so many factors. Like, does he have damage reduction on the model? But but what I like to do, and having played Namor quite a bit now, in pretty much every affiliation, I feel like I've tried him in Inhumans, I've tried him in the Invaders under S.H.I.E.L.D., I've tried him in Defenders, I tried him in Avengers too. So I've played him in quite a bit of scenarios, and I feel like he's best when he can be on a secure and also attacking an opponent with an extract. At the same time. And then, I mean, obviously that's Magical Christmas Land, but it does come up really often. Especially if you're running like really wide secures, right? Yeah,
because he's able to rotate around the board like pretty well because of the long movement, and he gets the built-in movement from his attacks.
Right? Yeah, like I think he's like best on pay-to-flips, right?
Yeah.
Or wider maps in general, D maps and B maps. I think he excels on.
Yeah, there's a case to run them in both either wide maps or in more tight maps as we go through the list. I think he's actually a very versatile model. You can obviously play him in like a traditional like extract heavy grab because like we talked about, but you can also use them for this displacement, and you can also use them for another power that we'll be talking about in a little bit.
Oh, we could talk about it now.
Oh, you want to talk about it now?
Sure.
Sure. Do you want to talk about Charismatic Leader?
Every allied model within 2, including himself, gets a reroll. And it's notable that so it's very similar to Baron Zemo's Strategic Genius. Is it called Strategic Genius?
It's Strategic Genius, yes.
So it's very similar, but it's differently named so they can stack. So if you have somehow, have a list where you have both Baron Zemo, either iteration of it, or Baron Strucker, who also has that ability, and Namor, you can kind of double up the rerolls.
Yes,
right?
Yes, you can double up on the rerolls because they are different ability names, which, is pretty great. So, so natively, he'll have a reroll to his attacks, a reroll to his defense. You're already starting with 6 dice or a 7 dice attack. So that feels pretty great.
Yep.
He's a 4/4/3 defense, so with 1 reroll, it almost feels like you're adding another die to your defense rolls, which is great. Yep. But yeah, if you were to synergize, double up with the Strategic Genius model, that's double the fun right there.
And do you think Charismatic Leader is better on tighter maps or wider maps?
Well, that's the thing. Like it's useful for the situation because it's free. So it's a free range to help you and your friends basically. And you can use that when you need to really like tackle a secure, maybe it's bunched up by a bunch of characters, or it's a tight map. Maybe Namor goes up, grabs something, comes back, and now let's say you have a gunline list. Like everyone can just move up to within that aura, and you're now having a much more consistent set of attacks. So yeah, very versatile ability. It's great on Zemo for reasons. Great on Baron Strucker. You know, it's going to be great here on Namor.
Yeah, awesome. Do you want to talk about his charge?
Yeah, sure. So we have a unique charge here called Imperious Rex, and it is capitalized.
Yes.
So I need to emphasize that you probably need to yell it.
You need to yell it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Imperious Rex!
There we go.
You know, there's an exclamation point, it's capitalized. You know, you have to abide by the instructions on the card. So you have 3 power for the superpower. It's an active superpower, so it must be done during Namor's turn. It costs an action, so this will take up one of his actions. But you get a good value for your buck. The character will immediately make a move action followed by a Trident attack. And if the attack does damage, at least one, the target then gains the stagger condition. This superpower can only be used once per turn.
Sweet.
Yeah, so you get, you know, for 1 action, you get to move long on a medium base. You then get to do a 6-die attack with a single reroll minimum. And before damage is dealt, you also still get to move S. So you're kind of getting like 2 good-sized movements out of it. You're getting a good attack out of it, and you get to apply the stagger condition. So reminder, folks, stagger condition makes it so that the first action the character takes is to do a shake action, which will effectively reduce their actions by 1 for that activation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you stagger a Hulk or, you know, any like big value models, you know, with that can really hamper down their effectiveness. Like.
So it allows him to trade up, right, quite effectively.
Yep.
I mean, do you think it's a better? I mean, it gives him a lot of turn 1 potential with if you have a leadership that is able to pass him power, right? And there's also an innate way he can start off with that 1 extra power, which maybe we should talk about that now?
Sure, yeah. So it should be noted that Namor the Submariner is one of the few newer models that actually have the Gem Bearer special rule. So to remind folks again, the Gem Bearer special rule allows you to assign one of the gems in the brackets that the character has. So in this case, the only option that Namor has is the Time Gem, which is, you know, it's slightly maligned, I think, to some folks. But I think for Namor, it actually does work pretty well.
Right, it's better on him than other characters.
Yes. So a couple things will happen. Number 1, if you have a gem at all, it's going to increase your threat value usually by 1. And second of all, you will also give you an additional power just for having a gem. So Namor, we'll flip back for a second. He has a passive ability called Atlantean Might, that during the power phase, they gain 1 additional power. So he generates his normal power 1, and then this additional 1 from the Atlantean Might. And if he has the Time Gem, he'll also receive a 3rd one.
Yeah.
And we talked about Imperious Rex, costs 3.
Yep.
So it allows you, beginning any of his turns, to have 3 power and ready to charge, I think.
Yeah, so turn 1, turn 3, if like you end up spending all your power, it turns on his charge. It's really good. Or his spender, right?
Yeah. If you don't need a charge, you just are already within 2 of someone. Yeah, you can do a swarm of crabs, octopus grass, or a wave of turtles onto them. Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. And we should talk about like he's a model that generates a lot of power generally, right? Yes. Even without the Time Gem. Right?
I would say so, yes. Because there would be situations where, like, especially if he doesn't need to do the Imperious Rex, there could be moments where he's just doing a couple builders or, you know, a fairly effective cost of spender at just 3 power. So I think the point you want to make is talking about the Time Gem specific superpower, right? Yeah. Yeah, so the Time Gem superpower, as far as I remember, it's only on attacks. It costs 2 power to use. But basically, after you roll, both players have done their modifications for either side, you can then activate the Time Gem ability to just do a sort of a recal matrix where you just have everybody re-roll their dice results, including skulls.
Including skulls, yeah. So it's the same, I think, as recal. Just that it includes skulls, so that could be better or worse depending on what model you're against. Right?
So this is especially good when you have, let's say, if you rolled a bunch of crits, like with your attacks, and you just have like ample amount of dice. So let's say you rolled your Trident builder, you got like a 1 or 2 crits out of it. So let's say you have 8 dice now that are in the pool. the other person was just rolling like a 3-die defense roll, but they happen to roll 3 successes while you only rolled like 2 or 3, and then okay, well, I think it's worth it for me to then re-roll everything because chances are like that 3 defense that they had probably is not going to come up again.
Probably not.
Well, you'll probably convert yours to like 4 hits or so in that case. So he becomes much more consistent, I think, damage-wise under that, at the cost of like increasing his threat. So your mileage may vary, but for some affiliations that want to run him, it might be worth it, I think.
I think so. I think it, like you said, smooths out his dice, and just giving them the 1 extra power can actually make him a little bit more versatile. But the threat is big. Like, I mean, a lot of lists don't want to run a 6-threat character. I play in humans, which already have a 5-threat leader. So adding a 6th threat to that is tough for some scenarios, right?
Yeah.
But other affiliations, I could definitely see Shield running with time, if he's not the leader.
Yeah.
Right. I could see even splashes. I think this character is going to be Splash just because he's so versatile. He has that turn 1 play. We'll talk about a little bit more about that later. But
yeah, I think if I had to make a wild guess at the moment, most likely when he's going to take the time gem is probably going to be in Splash affiliations. So I think so. His current 2 affiliations are Defenders and Shield. Yep. So, and those ones, like, you want to keep them kind of low, like overall. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well.
Yeah. Should we talk about the 2 parts we've left off there? So the second part of Atlantean Might, and then maybe another passive he has at the bottom?
Yeah. So Namor is very unique in that the Atlantean Might not only gives him the additional power, but he's one of the first, I believe the first character to have this particular special role.
The very first.
So, Atlantean Might's second part is that damage caused by this character's attacks and effects cannot be reduced or prevented by superpowers or team tactics cards. Sweet. Holy cow. Can I tell you the amount of times that I had to fight like a Rhino or a Rogue, great models, like, but they are so resilient, right? Because of that damage reduction. Beta Ray Bill, also damage reduction. Juggernaut. Thanos, infamously hard to put down, right? Because he, not only does he have damage reduction, but it's not to a minimum of 1. It's just damage reduction, so it could be 0 a lot of times. Namor is the first innate character, with an innate ability that is, that will actually bypass those defense techniques. So incredible thing to have, especially as you see, these are very popular models that we've just listed there.
Yeah, right. They're some of the most popular models in the game, especially right now.
Yeah.
So him being like an effective scalpel against some of those models, I think is it just raises his stocks and how much I would bring him as a Splash in other affiliations. Yeah.
I think Atomic Mass Games really looked at this character and thought about what can we inject into this game that will really shake things up, and I think that's definitely going to shake things up.
Yeah.
Even if I don't think Namor is going to be in every list, I think he's now a consideration for a lot of teams. If you need a midline grab, you need someone to deal with armor folks, or you just need the utility from the Armies of the Deep, all in one piece. To top it off, he's got flight.
Yeah, so no terrain is slowing him down.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because thinking about the 3 characters we just mentioned that with the long move, medium base, all of them have some way to circumvent terrain. So Angela's got flight. Amazing Spider-Man's got wall crawler. Namor's got flight. So continuing that trend, they're all pretty equal in that regard.
It's really strong. I mean, I played with Namor a bunch, including yesterday. And yesterday there was a Sanctum Sanctorum on the left side of the map here. And I was playing with a lot of models without flight or wall crawler. So I was wondering, how do I get there? But then I remembered that Namor had flight. And he just first turn swam up there. Well, flew up there with his little shoes, right? He's got the wings on his shoes.
The wings of the shoes,
yeah. The Hermes special. Yep. And he went up there, he took the extract, and then I just actually moved him back to be with the rest of my team because you mentioned a gun line, and he just helps out a lot of people with those rerolls.
Yeah, I assume you were playing in humans yesterday,
I was playing in humans.
So, yeah. So Black Bolt, famous,
the best
absolute incredible artillery cannon. So if you give him an additional reroll on top of that, he's even more terrifying.
Yeah, and with bodyguard too, which with Black Bolt already has as well, right?
Yeah.
Just the extra reroll on top of the extra reroll because he already has one. It's just so sweet.
Yeah, you start to see that turn 1, a very simple play is just to go up grab an objective, and then you'll be left with 1 power. Then beginning round 2, even if he doesn't have the time gem, he'll generate 2 power automatically. So that's going to be 3 power, and you can do Imperious Rex.
Yes.
That in round 2.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting, like thoughtful, purposeful, like tree that you can go down, like if you just want to do that. But I'm sure that there'll be a lot of players will find more interesting play patterns as well.
Yeah, that's the beauty of MCP is like as we keep playing with these models. I mean, we've taken a couple weeks since release to do this video, right?
Yeah.
And we've already discovered so many play patterns with him. I think there'll be even more in certain affiliations too.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And I've had a lot of fun actually with octopus grabs. I just like clearing midpoints because like that does seem to be a very popular style of play right now, is to like grab a bunch of extracts, huddle up on a secure and sort of castle up. Right. And I love any abilities that like really break that up so that the other player must consider like like what else they can do right. to score points now. So that'll be interesting. I'm hoping he shakes things up, and I think it's just a blast to play personally.
Yeah, yeah. Are you bringing him in your list right now?
Yeah, so I actually do have him in Web Warriors like at the moment. The main reason is because Amazing Spider-Man also, his alias conflicts with Spectacular Spider-Man.
Right.
Another amazing 3-threat model, but they're both named Peter Parker. You can't take them on the board at the same time. Right. So I thought that this was a very good substitute for that. And I think the rerolls are great because it gives an additional layer of rerolls. Miles' leadership allows you to unlock skulls. If you have a reroll source, it gives out an innate defense reroll. So Namor's then come in with 2 defensive rerolls. He is oddly hard to put down in some games, like when he's in Web Warriors.
I can definitely see that. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
And he's most often carrying an extract too.
Yes, and I think he's going to help out teams that maybe don't nearly have any offensive rerolls. So Web Warriors is famously great defense rerolls, but very little in terms of like offensive rerolls. So someone that is able to play the extra game while contributing to better dice outputs, I think it's going to be great.
Awesome, very cool.
Yeah, no changes on the backside, right?
None whatsoever, which I do like.
Yeah,
it's nice and simple.
Yep, it's very consistent. I mean, 14 health like is still very solid. 4/4/3, reroll like. He's not going to tank everything, but
yeah,
he should survive most one-activation attacks from like a lot of characters, I think, that aren't like super crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's the really biggest downside to him that's been identified about him so far. People are saying that he's a squishy character. I don't think, like you said, 14 health is quite a bit. I play a ton of Ronin. Ronin has 14 health. And as much as I want him to go down so he can use the Accuser, he somehow just tanks a lot of attacks sometimes just from that raw health, right?
Yeah.
And so that in combination with his 4 defense and the reroll, he's a lot tankier than people are giving him credit for.
Yeah, and he's only size 2, so you can hug cover like pretty well. Yep. So just be very mindful of like your placement with him, and I think he can stick around the board for a very long time.
Yeah.
And because of his movement, he can sort of like try to choose that engagement, so you can be a little fencer about it, where you can try to make sure you're in range to do stuff to him with Imperious Rex, but maybe they can't attack you with their initial attacks to begin with.
Yeah, because I think it's very easy to run into the I don't want to say it's a trap because it's on the card. He's so mobile. You could just like a charge, attack, move forward, attack someone else, move forward onto like a back point in 1 turn. Like you could easily do that, but I think it's you want to be thinking about what sort of clapback the opponent has because he does go down, and you also want to have that reroll bubble on your side of things generally. So that's just my 2 cents.
No, agreed. Yeah, like he constantly needs to look at like what's going on in the game and figure out like where is he most helpful. Maybe he's helping people. Maybe he's a solo guy. Depends. And I just love that about him. Like gives you a ton of options, and I think that's always great, especially on a 5-star character, which they need to pull their weight.
Yeah. So speaking of options, he comes with some tactics cards.
Oh yeah.
Should we talk about the first one?
Yes.
Let's go with his specific one.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Princess Protection. Do you want to go through that, Eric?
When an enemy character within 3 of him targets an allied character, which can include him, within an attack, Namor then spends 2 power. And remember, he's a very power flush model, so he's probably going to have that 2 power. You then place Namor within 1 of the attacking character. he becomes the target of the attack, so he's kind of taunting, he's taking that attack. And then, after the attack is resolved, if he survives, so he's not dazed or KO'd, he gets to push the enemy character, actually, all enemy characters within 2 of him away small.
That's insane.
That's like, it's equivalent to Heroes for Hire?
Oh, I think it's a little and then some, depending on the situation. Well, Heroes for Hire is nice because, like, you know, you throw someone afterwards, right? Which may potentially, like, do damage. So, you know, if they're on 1 health, like, you can possibly just end the person's activation if they don't have brace or something up, you know? But Namor's is interesting because, like, well, one, he's the one that has to pay for it, right? Versus Heroes for Hire. But the fact that he places one of the enemy character, right, instead of like one of the
defending character.
Yeah. So he's like really aggressively to just push himself up, right, like into the character. And unlike the Octopus's Grasp, which, you know, like, can only push the other characters around him besides the original target, this will actually allow you to push that original attacker, right?
Right. It's all the enemy characters. Wow.
Yeah. So if this is towards the last activations, right? You could potentially see someone second attack, they try to hit one of your allies, and they don't account for the fact that Namor is within 3. Yeah. Well, Namor can now take the hit, assuming he survives, clear off that entire secure point, and now you're owning that secure point, and you protected your ally at the same time.
Yeah. So that's an amazing like you said, late activation. Sort of card. That's great. I'm also thinking of, right now there are some affiliations which are I would say with very good win rates right now, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And like you said, they have a strategy of bunkering, sort of, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, Webs does it, right? Hellfire does it.
Hellfire does as well.
And so. Having a bunker maybe on a back gamma, I'm thinking, is very common. Any back point, and yeah, just being able to disrupt that whole thing. If they're running a Koye or any bodyguards, that's not getting turned on once they get pushed away. Yep. I think it's a fantastic card.
Yeah, like I said, Namor just makes to make sure you survive the attack, right?
Right.
So you won't be doing this in a Cosmic Ghost Rider spender.
No,
but for a lot of other attacks, I think it's pretty reasonable, especially if you're at full 7 health, like you'll probably survive the attack and then you will get the displacement.
Yeah, if anything, it's going to cause the opponent to have like a little bit of a pause. Yeah. Right? Like, do I really want to attack here? Right. And potentially mess up my entire plan? You know?
Yeah, so like the soft power of cards like this is that, it will change the opponent's behaviors, And, either they'll slip up or you just make sure that, like, hey, they may not take that second attack now.
Right.
Because it could be very, very bad. So it's great. I think it makes the opponent think. It makes you think a lot. And I think it's a great card to premiere with this character. For sure.
How often in a competitive scenario are you taking this card with Namor?
I think for the most part, it's never a bad slot if you're taking him. Because it gives them a movement, it gives you displacement of it, and it protects one of your characters. The only time I would think is that if you think that there is basically no point where Namor is going to be really within range 3 of attacking characters, like trying to attack. Right. But even then, like, you can still use it, like, I believe on himself still, right?
Yeah, you can, because it's an allied character.
Yeah, so, yeah, he is allied to himself. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I think what my usual tactics card spiel is that, like, hey, you have 5 tactics cards. If you have a specific plan with those 5, take the 5 that you need. But if you're looking for something to fill in the gaps and you're taking Namor, this is rarely a bad card to take because it will likely come up in some point in the game for very, very good utility. Very cool. Awesome.
Should we talk about his next card, the Invaders?
Yeah, so Invaders is a shield reactive card. So what it is after deployment, an ally, Namor, the Submariner, or Steve Rogers, Captain America, may play this card. The character that played this card immediately gains the following leadership ability. So we have this new leadership called the Invaders, Affiliation Shield. Allied characters may reroll 1 defense die. Additionally, they can modify and reroll skull results, or failure results, as also known, while they are within 2 of another allied character. So this is actually very similar to the Web Warriors Great Responsibility leadership from Miles, which I have a lot of experience with. And just re-rolling 1 defense die, doesn't seem like much, but it's a free leadership. Doesn't cost anything to activate it. Right. So unlike Invincible Iron Man's leadership, similar to Black Panther's, you need to spend a power for each instance that you're taking advantage of that leadership. But a defense reroll is just free here, and also if you have a source of rerolls and you're typically like failure skulled out, this allows you to sort of unlock those skulls. So let's say Namor rolls his defense, he gets shield, 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 but a skull. Now because you are within 2 of an ally, he can use his Namor reroll to unlock that skull and have another bite at the apple, right? To try to get another defense roll out. Yeah,
that's sweet. And that unlocks also rerolls for attacks as well, right?
Yeah, so any sorts of rerolls. So conversely, offensively, he rolls, 6 dice, he gets 5 hits and a skull. The leadership allows you to unlock that skull, and he's using his reroll, his Namor Charismatic Leader reroll as a source. He can then unlock that skull offensively as well. So this is really good because there's various characters in S.H.I.E.L.D. that give you rerolls on either side. So you have Namor now, but you also have Invincible Iron Man. So he's got the Jarvis superpower that allows him to reroll attack dice for friends within a certain range. I think it's either 3 or 4.
I think it's 4.
1 to 4, yeah. Very useful, but sometimes you just get a bunch of failure skulls and you can't reroll them. Well, now if they're within a friend, within 2 of a friend, they are allowed to take advantage of that and unlock those skulls.
That's sweet.
Yeah, it does take up a card slot, so it should be noted. So this is not unlike Convocation, which gets their leadership for free without taking one of your 5 slots. This will take up one of your 5 card slots. S.H.I.E.L.D. is incredible as far as like tactics card selections. Like they have Battlefield Medicine, they
Shield-Mobile.
have Shield-Mobile, Sit Rep, like so many movement, options. The initiative, if you want to be really cute and initiatize Hulk into Shield and then give him the Shield-Mobile so he moves along, like something absurd. But this will take up one of the slots. But I think arguably it is worth it because both Nick Fury's leadership, and Invincible Iron Man's leadership does tax your power economy a little bit. And I think what this does is for a card, it makes your team resilient for the entirety of the game as long as Namor or Steve Rogers Captain America is around.
Yeah.
So I think this has a lot of legs. It's one of the better tactics cards leaderships I've seen. And I think it's worth considering and experimenting with. I'm currently playing with that in some S.H.I.E.L.D. games now. I'm having a lot of good time with it. It seems very useful. And I might actually prefer it versus the other 2 leaderships, especially if we're moving to a S.H.I.E.L.D. that's less gunlining and more like, hey, we want to grab extracts, we want to hold on to points parity or go above, and then we can try to score out the game in like 4 turns,
Wow,
and this will keep the characters around long enough to make sure that you see it through,
Right. Yeah, I was going to bring up the point that it really changes the playstyle of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's kind of funny, like we both have, we've both run the Invaders, but we have both different takes on this exact,
Oh, that's right, you're doing a more the traditional gunline.
Yeah, well, I'm actually using more of a traditional, so you're using this defensively. Right?
Yes.
And I'm using this more offensively. So I love that second part of it where it's unlocking the skulls. And so I'm trying to run as many models as I can with offensive rerolls.
Right.
And so I do have Invincible Iron Man in there. I've got Black Panther. He's one of my splashes because he can reroll his attack dice. And so being able to reroll skulls if he's within 2. I have Baron Zemo in there, and so when he gets his Master Swordsman, with all rerolls, he can reroll skulls, and then if he's within 2 of Namor, because I do run them together, he gets 2 more rerolls. So it's very often that I'm doing a 5-die builder that ends up with 5 successes, or a 6-die spender that ends up with 6 successes, not counting crits.
Yeah. Forget if you add crits in there. It becomes insane amount of damage, I would say.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like I love that a single card has not only provided a different way to play the affiliation, but different ways, different interpretations of the card too.
Yeah.
I think your way is probably more competitive.
I wouldn't say that. I think unlocking offensive rerolls is also like very valid, and and S.H.I.E.L.D.'s great because like it's an affiliation that can play a lot of different ways. The roster is very deep at this point. You can play very extract heavy, like Black Widow, the 3rd version. She can go and be a extract monster, But also, like, offensively, if she lands her finisher, you know, with some consistency of dice rolls from either this aura or Jarvis and unlocking those skulls, like, it can be curtains for a lot of characters, you know, sometimes once you get that spender off.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many models in S.H.I.E.L.D. that are great. I cannot wait to see what people do with it. I think S.H.I.E.L.D. is a very deep faction, and this just makes it a lot deeper.
Yeah, and then just to cap it off, this leadership gives a reason to play Steve Rogers, Captain America, who is seen as the poor man's Captain America.
He's definitely the run to the litter of the three
Yeah.
Steve Rogers, right?
Yeah.
And this is mainly because, like, on his backside, he doesn't have the "I can do this all day," which allows you to count blanks on leaderships, which the other two Captain Americas have, but this one doesn't.
Right, and he doesn't have the ricochet throw, he doesn't have the bodyguard, but what he does bring is a flurry attack, which, you know, flurry attacks love rerolls, and he has an innate reroll in his card.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Which costs 3 power, I believe,
Yeah.
and allows him to reroll all of his attack dice.
Yeah, so if you can get Steve to that magical 3 power, like, you know, status, then yeah, his attacks become a lot more interesting, especially under this leadership.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm also excited, like you, to see who will bring out Steve Rogers Captain America and see if we can make him work. That model is the best looking Captain America,
Yes.
in my opinion, and
the sculpt is amazing.
He needs to be on the field more. Like, I love this guy.
This might get him there.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, so Namor, yay or nay?
Yay, two
All right.
thumbs up. Like, love this model. Like, people should be excited about it, and I'm happy to see people experiment and try different things with this model. He's got a wide tool set, and I think people will be very happy with what he brings to the table.
Very cool.
So next segment, we'll talk about the Chosen of Bass. Please click on the next video, and we'll see you then.